So we're over here at the
Yes, sir.
CCA workbench, and we have a lot of stinky catfish
we do.
stuff.
Yeah.
I actually just tried this one, and I want you to know,
Yeah, we'll talk about that in a
not
minute.
too impressed.
Well, you know, the catfish is probably one of the most popular fish we have behind bass and a crappie. You know, and you want to catch catfish because they're great to eat.
Right.
You know, and they get really big. As a matter of fact, the blue catfish is the largest game fish there is in Texas. You know, they get to 121 pounds on. That's the world record on. I mean, Texas record on rod and reel. 121 pounds. A blue catfish. You know, and a blue cat's like an athletic catfish. You know, he eats a lot of bait, and probably the best bait to catch him with are fresh baby shads. You know, fresh shad. These are baby shad. These are dead ones. If you don't have fresh shad, if you can't get fresh shad, then you could probably get some dead ones, and you'll do all right for the blue cats. You know, a blue cat is, like I said, he's a little bit more athletic. You know, if you find the big balls of shad, you'll find those blue cats around him. Now the channel catfish, he's got a forked tail too. He's a pretty athletic catfish, but he's a little bit more lethargic. He'll live in the deeper rivers, you know, and blue cats live in rivers too. They both live in rivers and lakes. But you know, he's a little bit more. He's the guy who'll come up to chum a lot more. You'll catch a lot more of them, you know, versus great big ones, you know. He's still a good catfish.
Now, Dave, I got to ask you something. You know, what in the hell?
These are for
possessed you to buy.
Well, those are called range cubes, and you buy them by the 50-gallon bag, 50-pound bag.
Come on, Dave.
The range cubes, the boys will use them for baiting a hole. They call it baiting a hole. And what they'll do is they'll get these range cubes, which is pretty much nothing but cow food. You know, it's to throw on the ground for the cows to eat. And it's got a lot of plants and protein and all that other junk in it. And you throw that in your spots, and then you go catch some bass or whatever.
This looks like what my neighbor didn't pick up in my yard yesterday.
Anyway, and you come back and it draws the catfish in. If they're not going to use that, then they'll use mash, you know, some mash like corn or wheat or millet that they'll put in a bag, a bucket, and they'll let it ferment. You fill it about 3/4 full. Put about 2 inches of water over the top of it and let it sit in a bucket for a couple of days, and it gets rancid. And that's what they'll throw out for the baiting a hole or chumming. You know, when they'll come up, they'll throw a couple spoonfuls out, and then they'll start fishing in the same spot. But that's the two different things.
What are these buckets of stuff? And
tubes
of stuff.
Well, they have two different baits. You know, they have a dip bait, and then they have a stick bait. And a dip bait is something that you can just go ahead and put a hook with a sponge or something that'll hold the bait. And a dip bait is something that you can just dip it in there.
This is the dip.
Yeah, well, you can just dip it in, you know. But a stick bait is one. These are dip baits that are kind of cold because they've been sitting in here. But a stick bait is one where you have to use a stick or something to mash your stuff in there, you know, and get it all, you know, mashed up on the sponge or the treble hook or whatever you're going to be using for bait. You know, and that's what they'll use a lot of times is a treble hook. You know, this thing here actually, you can squirt it on there, and this thing will actually fill that little plastic thing with blood. Yeah, you'll fill it with blood or whatever you want to fill it with. But when you're making that mash, you know, you want to put like a beer in there or something, let it get it all fermented. But you don't want to put the bucket lid on there until it stops bubbling. Because if you put that bucket lid on there and let it sit, it will explode and will make mash go all over your house. I got 3 different rigs here, and
all right. So what about our rod?
Okay, that's the regular Santee Cooper rig. Okay. And it's on an Okuma bait caster rod, and it's kind of like a fish finder. Right. And what it is you got a sliding weight down to a barrel swivel, and then 24 to 36 inches, a 50-pound leader. Right. And right before you get up to your I like to use a snelled-on circle hook for a catfish because I like to hook them right in the corner of the jaw. You don't have to jerk on it or nothing. He just sets the hook himself. But you put a nice peg float a couple of inches away, or 6 to 8 inches away from your bait. So this keeps it up off the bottom. When you're sitting, it'll float your bait up off the bottom. Or you could use the same kind of thing with a 3-way, a 3-way swivel and a fish finder. Right. And this is the same. I got a little loop here. It doesn't really matter. We'll just cutting it down. But with same kind of deal with a fish finder on it.
Right.
And this is just a bank sinker, a 2-ounce bank sinker, or you can get like a pencil sinker and walk it.
Right.
You know, instead of the bank, you can put a walker on there, and and I made this one. You can either get one made like this on an 80-pound mono, or you can just get a pencil weight and use it and bounce it along the bottom, and this will walk it and keep everything up off the mess on the bottom.
Man, please kindly make sure I get that, because Bree and I are going to film a Sportsman's Adventures, and I'm going to put something in her luggage.
Don't you
I'm not gonna do that
dare.
to
Oh
you.
my goodness, it is like an 8-course meal for
It pretty
catfish over there.
It's stinky though. It's
And
good
I
stuff.
gotta say, good thing this isn't smell-o-vision, guys.